There was another school-related election last night, this one having to do with the West Bonner County School District. And this one not necessarily about money, well, at least not directly, but it was about recalling two of its school board trustees in a cash-strapped district. Board Chair Keith Rutledge and Vice Chair Susan Brown were removed last night for what organizers of the recall called a failure to uphold their oath of office. And what's interesting about this is how many people did get involved to oust them, more than voted to vote them in. Back in 2021, when both Rutledge and Brown were elected to the board, fewer than 500 people voted in either of their zones. That'd be Zone 2 and Zone 4. Both barely got a majority of the votes, Rutledge getting 51% of the vote, Brown getting 50% of the vote. So to vote them out, they each had to get one more than the number that voted them in. In Rutledge's case, that would be 245. In Brown, 177. Now, last night, they blew right past that. Nearly 2,200 people voted in this recall election, nearly 5 times as many as 2 years ago when it was just a regular election. 624, or 66%, voted to recall Brown in Zone 2, 762, or 63%, voting to recall Rutledge in Zone 4, an overwhelming majority in both cases. This election was put in play on June 30th, one day after the Board of Trustees voted to I should say, right after the board voted 3-2 to install Brandon Durst, an unqualified, uncertified candidate as district superintendent. Rutledge and Brown both voted in favor of Durst. But that vote wasn't even really mentioned in the petition to recall them. The recall, they say, was based on several other things, from costing the district extra money because they decided to ditch a new language arts curriculum just before the school year started last year, and claims that Rutledge and Brown have a hidden agenda, and neither respect the rights and opinions of the parents and constituents. Bottom line, they were accused of not having the educational welfare of the students as their first and greatest concern. It took them 2 weeks to gather enough signatures to force this recall election. And we did try to reach out to all three, to Superintendent Durst, to Chair Rutledge, or former Chair Rutledge, and former Vice Chair Brown, and have yet to hear back from either of them. So now what happens? Well, the remaining members of the board have 90 days to find replacements to complete those recalled trustees' terms, which last until 2025. All of this is unofficial, by the way, until September 7th, when the election will be canvassed or certified. And of course, all of this is a culmination of the fracturing that is taking place in this school district, but not necessarily the end of the ordeal, nor does it solve the problems they are facing. As trustee Margaret Hall told us today by email, bottom line, the community at large has to figure out how to work together as a team for the sake of our district's young people. School starts next week.